I'm going to do a Dexa scan on my birthday.
You had 14.7 kilograms of fat. To get that in perspective, that's 500. So it'd be 3.5 of those.
All the therapies, I've done subconscious reprogramming, I've done different protocols, I've done all the things about this connection that I have with food. But that was one of the biggest things for me. And that's something that's been extremely like a weight off my shoulders. Don't do the carnivore diet. You're gonna get scurvy. You're gonna have a heart attack. What about your cholesterol? You can't eat that much meat. You need the fiber. These are all the things that I read online and heard from different influencers before I decided to go and do animal-based carnivore. So I started animal-based 6-7 months ago. When I say animal-based, predominantly meat, eggs, some raw dairy, and I was having fruit. Now I was coming from a pretty, let's just say, whole food, highly organic type of diet, but very high carb. I decided to go animal-based just to see how I would feel. And I went straight to meat and then having fruit. In January, middle of January time, so about 5 months in, I decided to cut the fruit because I was doing a 28-day reset in my community where we have to give up one thing. And the one thing for me was fruit because I would overconsume huge amounts of fruit or carbs. So I thought I'll just give it a go. I'll see how I feel. The first few weeks of doing the carnivore diet, I was like just without meat, I was pretty rough. Like my body was still adapting to trying to find a new energy source rather than using carbs for years. And then I started to feel a little bit better. So now I'm actually about 6 weeks in with just meat. And I booked in to get a Dexa scan. I get one done every couple of years anyway, just to see bone density, visceral fat, the fat that's around your organs. I'm not too bothered about like body fat percentage, even though I've lost 13 kilos. I'm already like a larger guy. You know, I'm 6'1" and I was 120 kilos when I started, and I'm 108, 107 on a good day, you know, at the moment, which is pretty wild for me. I try not to get involved in dogmatic ways of eating because then eventually what happens is it becomes an identity for people eating this particular way. And I get it because people have had so much benefits and healing from just changing their diet. But I try not to get in that mindset because the problem with me is if I don't do something properly or in the realms of things, I tend to throw my dolls out the pram and just not do it. So for me personally, this is what I'm eating right now and this is what personally serves me. I'm a big believer in doing what feels right for you. Doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Try it, see what works for you. Does it mean I'm gonna eat this way for the rest of my life? Probably not. But I do have found extreme benefits from this that I've done with anything else, if I'm honest. So I actually wanted to commit and see how I would personally feel myself and then go from there. And I thought, let's time this and let's do the Dexa scan at the same time and see what actually happens. The only challenge I have noticed with it so far for me personally is the lack of sleep. I feel like my body is like adrenalized and it's just buzzing ready for the day. Through the first few weeks, it has settled over the last week or so. And that's been about 5 weeks in. I think it took a while for my body to become truly fat adapted or find its way of finding that new rhythm, but the sleep was a struggle for me. I found that if I had like a slice of butter or some raw cheese pretty much close to my bedtime, it would be a lot easier, but not as much as I would when I would have a huge dose of carbs. Because if I'm gonna be really real with you, I think I've been a carb addict my entire life. You know, I grew up in an era that you had sweets, you had chocolate milkshakes, you went to the shops, and you know, my mum would buy me chocolates and sweets as like a reward for the day. So any time that I was ever struggling with anything in my life emotionally, I would always use chocolates and sweets and carbs as a way of making myself feel better. But that's really the only, I would say, thing that I've struggled with. I wouldn't even say it's a con, because when I'd wake up in the morning, I have more energy. I'm not tired and slogging around because I've been tossing and turning with sleep. The main benefits that I've noticed on the carnivore diet has been the brain fog that I think I've had my entire life lifted. It feels like my brain's come online for the very first time. My ability to drop into my work and focus on my work has increased by, I would say, 80%. I love what I do for my work, but when I would overconsume carbs, I would just be sluggish, I would be numb, and I would be fatigued. Now, look, the last 5 months or 4 months or so, I've been eating fruit, so it's not necessarily terrible ways of eating. It's not terrible processed carbs. It was just the fruit was bringing me down just that little bit more. When my body switched over to fat adapted, my brain just came back online. My ability to tap into getting into workspaces was so much easier. I found more flow in what I was doing. Like as soon as I would wake up, I'd do my qigong, I'd do my morning routine, and then I'd just jump into work. Whereas normally I have to sort of like get myself going. I might even need like a green tea, or, you know, I'd have to have that little bit of motivation to push me, to get me to do that. I've also found that I've had more steady energy. So whereas normally when I wake up in the morning, I'm a little bit groggy, I'll go and do some more routine, I'll hydrate, and then I'll get outside in the sun and I'll ground, and then my body starts to slowly wake up. Whereas with this, I've been straight into the day. Like my energy is a lot more stable, more than the ups and downs and roller coasters of riding on blood sugars, you know. The weird one as well is like physical healing in my body. Now I'm not trying to heal any chronic symptoms anymore. I don't have any chronic symptoms anymore like I used to. I'll do another video on chronic fatigue, etc. at some point. What I've noticed is like how my body recovers quickly from training and exercise. I only train twice a week and I do BJJ twice a week. And I found that the niggles and the DOMs that I would get after training are pretty much non-existent. It's wild, really. I've never experienced this. I'm 38 years old today. Today's my birthday. And I'm going to do a Dexa scan on my birthday. But I've found that I always used to ache, and I'd always have to stretch. I'd have to do yoga every day or qigong, and that would get the niggles and the aching out. But whereas doing this, I've just found that I just can stretch and I go straight into more flexible positions than I would do normally, which was a bit of a weird. I didn't expect that. Little things like I used to have these spots on my bum, on my glutes. I tried everything to getting those off. I tried different protocols and all sorts of things, but the only thing I really didn't do was change my diet, because I think truly I've always been addicted to food. And I realized and treated it like it was an addiction. And once I started to come off all the carbohydrates and just go animal-based, high fat, eggs, etc., I found that my skin on my bum started to heal. And I used to get like these little rashes on my feet, gone. I used to find that my tongue would be quite furry, fungal overgrowth type symptoms, gone. It's these little things that have trickled in throughout these last 5-6 weeks of just this that have been pushing me and egging me on, like, actually, you really feel good on this.
Happy birthday.
Who comes to a Dexa scan on their birthday?
Winners.
Winners, yes. That's what I should have replied to everyone.
Absolutely. So last time you were here, you're 117.7. Today you're 110.1. So you've lost weight. In fact, you've lost body weight of 7.6 kilograms. You had 14.7 kilograms of fat. Now you have 12.9 kilograms. So you've lost 1.8 kilograms of fat. And to get that in perspective, that's 500. So it'd be 3.5 of those. 1, 2, 3.5.
I feel just all around better than I've ever felt.
So let's look at your new metrics. You're 110.1. Your body fat percentage went from 12.5 to 11.8. Very lean. Muscles stay the same, so they're a good weight at 4.8 kilograms. With the muscle mass, you had 98.2, now it's 92.3. And the fat, it was 14.7 down to 12.9, and the visceral fat dropped from 1,165 to basically 1,000, which is great. So they're very good results, absolutely. Pretty good scan, bro.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome.
So DEXA scan all done. I actually feel comfortable with those results because last time I did one, which was about a year and a half ago, I was 117 kilos and I just felt a bit too heavy. And over the last year, I've been fasting a lot more, 2-3 times a week. And then obviously the reduction in carbs means I'm probably losing a little bit of muscle tissue. My goals have changed massively. I'm not bothered about how much muscle I hold at all. It's more about how I feel, and the lighter I feel, the better I feel. And the fact that my visceral fat dropped as well. So, happy days. I'll say one of the biggest things I've felt so far is the emotional freedom from food. Now look, listen, I'm no expert. I'm just telling you my experience here. When we are doing a carnivore diet and your insulin isn't raising as much, I've been told that your ghrelin levels drop, which is your hunger hormone, right? So the more that I am eating just more animal-based and fat, I don't feel hungry. So my relationship with food and craving the carbs, because we never crave just vegetables, do we? We'd always crave something like carbs or sweets or chocolate, right? You never see anyone go home and binge on a chunk of celery. For me, it was always carbs and sugars, and I'd always have it in the evening after my main meal because in the UK, it's like a dessert culture. We'd have dessert after evening meals, and I think a lot of other cultures are the same in the West. So I would just be used to this emotional connection with food. Anytime I was upset, anytime that I had anything going on, I felt anxious or overstimulated or dysregulated, I would come home and I would just sort of sit in front of the TV and just eat food. From doing this, after the first 2 weeks, that completely went for me. And that was extreme freedom. Like, I've never had that in my entire life. I've tried everything under the sun. I've looked at all the therapies. I've done subconscious reprogramming. I've done different protocols. I've done all the things about this connection that I have with food. I will do another video on this because there is another couple of emotional links that I think I found with food and my way of eating now at the moment. But that was one of the biggest things for me. And that's something that's been extremely like a weight off my shoulders, that I'm not constantly looking for more food to snack on. I've lost 14 kilos. So I was 120 kilos when I started. I'm around 108, 107. I didn't even choose to lose weight. It just was what's happened since doing it. And you know, I'm getting a little bit leaner in places that I've never sort of had for a long time. And I feel like I'm in better shape now at 38 than when I was bodybuilding and taking loads of hormones at 27, 28. Yeah, it's been wild. Oh, and one other thing as well that I've noticed, like my bags under my eyes, they don't look too great at the moment, but I would have more deeper ridges under the eyes. Now this is probably due to I was more stressed through going through the blood sugar dysregulation, or my body was holding a lot more water retention and it was puffing out my cheeks that was making more of an indent. Either or, my bags under my eyes have gone down. Normally, like rings under the eyes is about adrenals. You've got a big adrenal output, high cortisol levels, which probably is the case for me personally if I push myself a little bit too hard. But I've noticed that they've gone down a lot. My body's ability to deal with stress has got better through eating this way. My HRV is a lot higher. Now, normally my HRV would be around the late 60s, 68, 69, 70, and now we're getting up into the 85, 90s, some every day. I use a Sleep 8 mattress to measure the metrics of how my body is sleeping and my HRV in the morning. HRV is your body's ability to deal with stress, heart rate variability, and mine's been a lot higher. Now, I don't check those analytics every day because sometimes I don't like a number dictating the way that I'm gonna live my day. I can get a bit anal about these statistics. So I just check in and see how they're going towards the end of my day rather than the beginning of my day. No sunburn. As my diet changed over the years from I was doing the calorie counting bodybuilding thing that just gave me a terrible connection with food, and that my body was always regulating on a certain amount of calories, which just doesn't make sense. That we would always need the same amount of calories every day. We would fluctuate as human beings. We never stay in the same state. You know, we're not always happy all the time. We need sadness in order to feel the happiness. We need those uncomfortable periods to understand there is joy in our life. It's same as our body temperature. Our body temperature is not meant to always be hot or warm or cold. It changes and goes through the day. So it's the same with anything in regards to the way that we consume things, right? So with my food, I don't personally think that always staying in ketosis is good. I think that I believe in metabolic switching, and having maybe coming out of ketosis for periods of time would actually benefit us. I'm not at that stage yet. I've not been in it long enough where it's at all, that people have been in this for years, where I feel like I need to do that just yet. But that is something that I'll definitely look into further down the line. But this is early days, and if you want me to do more content on my carnivore journey and all this stuff, then just comment below and give me a shout. But no sunburn was the weirdest one, because even when I was eating that diet, the sort of your typical everything diet, it was organic, but it was still just lots of snacks and processed foods or organic food. And I found that when I would be in the sun, normally I would go red and I'd have a bit of a histamine reaction and I would start sneezing, and then I would feel rough for a day. But whereas since I've been doing this, my body just goes brown. I laid in the sun yesterday for about an hour and a half when I was doing some work out there, and my body went brown today. There's no burning. So I believe that's due to the less oxidative stress from my diet, and my body is just going straight into increasing more melanin in my skin. Don't hold me to that. Like I said, I'm no expert. I'm just telling you my experience. Here's my take on carnivore for others. Do I think this is right for everyone? Not necessarily. I do believe that ancestrally, uniquely, all our bodies are different. And I think you will find what works for you. If you are thriving in life and everything is working well for you, then don't change anything. Just keep doing what you're doing. I do believe that regardless if you're a plant-based eater or you're a meat-based eater or you're something in between, and if you're feeling good, you don't need to necessarily change anything. Like, my nutrition was the last thing that was to change for me. I was doing all of the emotional work, all the gut resets and protocols. That's part of my work. But it wasn't until I actually just changed my full way of eating, because I don't think I was ready for it, if I'm honest. I feel like my connection with food and carbs was still really strong. I do believe everyone should experiment and find out what works for them. And the only way you're gonna know how to do that is if you try something. And try it for 28 days. Just see how you go for 28 days. If you start to notice differences and you go, okay, I'm gonna give this a go, give it a go. And that's in any type of eating that you're gonna do. As long as it's low process, we're cutting out of those seed oils and everything else in between, I think we're going on the right step to feeling good and feeling better. So lastly, will I carry on eating this way? So far, so good. This feels good to me. This feels like the benefits definitely outweigh the cons for me. My connection with food has changed, my brain fog has lifted, my energy has lifted and more stable. I feel better than I probably ever felt in a very, very long time. You know, I'm lighter in my body, which is always good for the body, and I'm gonna keep going. So I'm gonna keep going for the next few months, and I'm going to see how I feel in a few months. If I need to change things, I will. But yeah, catch me on the flip side, guys. Thank you so much. See you soon.